Auzubillahiminashaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. You are watching Voice of Toronto Television with me, Anjum Malik. और मेरा और आपका साथ रहता है एवरी वीक प्राइम टाइम विद अंजुम मलिक के शो में. और आप हमें देखते हैं सारे IP चैनल्स के ऊपर. वी आर लाइव ऑन फेसबुक एंड लाइव ऑन यूट्यूब एज वेल. And if you would like to connect with us during this transmission, you can always give us a call at 905-670-4114. आज का जो प्रोग्राम है it's very important and it is to do with the Liberal government working in the House of Commons. काफ़ी अर्सा हो गया इस हवाले से हमने बात नहीं की. Generally we do talk about the Prime Minister's the thing that he is doing and how the government is functioning and what are the reforms they are bringing, whether it's a housing sector or whether it's an immigration, refugees, and in general we do talk about it every time when I do my current affair programs. I do touch a little bit base on a few things. But today I'm having this opportunity to speak to a very beloved member of parliament who live in Brampton North riding, my previous riding where I used to live, and I moved away from there. She has first of all became the chief whip for the government, chief government whip. And we're going to ask her what that is. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate Member of Parliament Ruby Sahota. She's with us tonight, live at our studios at Voice of Toronto TV. And welcome. How are you, Ruby ji?
Hello, Anjum. I'm very well. How are you?
Bahut shukriya. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on your show. It's always so nice to
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. I wanted to, first of all, congratulate you on the air, live tonight, for a lot of people who know you have been a very hard-working member of parliament in Brampton North, but they didn't know about your new position that you have. Let's put a little light on what the chief whip is for the government.
Yeah.
I mean, is that whip that we we generally talk about?
Yes.
And how does that whip works? And what are your domains and what are the responsibilities of the whip as well? We can talk both in Hindi, Punjabi and English at the same time so people can understand that. So go ahead, first of all.
Yeah, so the traditional whip that you're talking about is definitely, a historic symbol that, is about discipline, government discipline.
Discipline,
and,
that's a good word.
And so, yes, my whips team has gifted me an actual whip, which is framed and put on my wall in my office in West Block right now.
Okay.
And it's a reminder that discipline is very, very important when you want to achieve goals and make sure that your legislation and the promises that you made to Canadians can be passed through the House of Commons.
Okay.
And can be delivered to Canadians. So yes, इसका एक हिस्सा discipline नेरी होता है, पर we're in modern times, right?
हाँ जी.
In modern times, discipline का मतलब होता है that team को किस तरह जोड़ के रखना है, team unity किस तरह create करनी है, right? And that's so important, especially in a minority government, that our team is feeling bonded, feeling strong. उनकी inside opinions क्या है हर एक issue बारे.
Okay.
So that vote किसने किस वक्त किस तरह पोनी है. That's important for me to count the numbers.
Okay.
To make sure I know every head in the House of Commons उसने किस तरफ vote कोई भी piece of legislation.
So this is a position that you've been appointed for that position, not nominated. It's an appointed position by the Prime Minister or by the House of Commons.
By the Prime Minister.
By the Prime Minister. Okay.
But my role is very interconnected to work with the Speaker, the House of Commons, the other House leaders and whips of other parties to make sure that we are working with all opposition parties and making sure that our agenda is put forth, but they also get a voice in Parliament and get to bring up their issues. So me and the House Leader, these two roles, the Whip and the House Leader, work very closely together to make sure that the government agenda is advanced and achieved. And so that is our main role, but there are lots of side roles that the government whip performs. We are making sure that our caucus members are serving on different, playing different roles in Parliament, on international parliamentary associations, traveling, representing Canada on an international stage.
Right.
In our committees, you know, the whip's role is to make sure our committees are functioning properly. If there is any issue in any of our committees, which members we think are best suited to be the chair of certain committees, to perform, to bring their skills to the table and make sure people feel valued.
Nice,
right?
nice.
Yeah.
In the House of Commons, your opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, he is very skeptical nowadays. He's been coming very hard on Liberal Party with the policies, how they got implemented, a lot of issues he's talking about, he's raising. Now, I'm going to point a few of them, and then I think our community who was watching you tonight, it will be a great opportunity for them to get those answers, especially for them. And the first thing would be is the housing crisis that we have. The Bank of Canada rate been kept at 5%. More than, I've been reading a research report, and in the report it said that over 30 to 40,000 realtors have packed up their bags since last year and went home or start doing part-time because they cannot sell homes in Canada and they cannot make their living. Yeah. And part of that is said to be that it is the ripple effect of the housing crisis in Canada that has been basically associated with the foreign students coming into Canada. This is what the opposition leader is talking about. So being yourself a whip, what is your take on this, first of all, on this particular issue, that why this has been created and why there have been policies in place for a few years? I mean, you guys been in power for a few years, and why we still had the housing crisis, in Canada, in general.
So first of all, Pierre Poilievre, there's no one he doesn't hate or put down.
Right.
Whether it comes to criticizing city mayors all across this country, the Quebec Premier, there's no one that is beyond approach for him. Our institutions, judges, bank governors, he hates them all. And that's an important thing, that his style and technique is to make people angry, to make Canadians angry, so that he can take advantage of that situation and gain an opportunity to become the next.
Do you think
Prime
he's
Minister.
succeeding with that?
I think people are struggling right now.
Okay.
And therefore, when you are speaking, about their pain, but showing them the door of anger and how you can vent that frustration, I think, to some degree there is a segment of society that is saying, okay, he's talking about the issues that matter to us, but so are we. But he's doing it in an angry way that's attracting attention. But I think overall, Canadians, given time, would be turned off of that, because you can't lead a country in anger, right? You have to lead a country in competence, in building relationships with different provinces, with different world leaders. If you're constantly fighting with the world, then, there's going to be difficulty headed your way, right? And we have to join communities together. Pierre Poilievre was a housing minister previously as well. And in those days, the federal government completely pulled out of housing, said, let the municipalities and the provinces and everyone deal with it. It is only now, for the first time ever, that a federal government has provided and stepped in, where Ontario recently cut funding, through their bill that would have gone to municipalities to provide to prepare land to have water and sewage and all of the facilities that are needed. Builders had to pay a fee, a percentage, when they were building communities to provide and put those things in. Now the builders no longer have to do that due to Doug Ford's legislation, and so who's holding the cost? It means houses won't get built because the city can't afford to do all of that by themselves. We've just given them $114 million. One of the very first Housing Accelerator Fund announcements that we made was with the city of Brampton, because they talked about the difficulty they're having, right? We had conversations What do you need? What kind of help do you need from the federal government to move housing, to remove the red tape, to give permits to build houses faster? And that is one of the concerns that they had. So we have been making announcements across the country to help unlock that potential to get housing built faster. Housing did slow down in this country for the last 50 years. I know real estate agents are having a very hard time. I do sympathize with many. The numbers are interesting because, yes, almost everyone I know in the profession has had a slowdown, but lots of people joined the profession in the last few years that were not full-time real estate agents. I know so many people myself that, that joined and got new real estate license only in the hopes to sell one or two homes way above asking price so they could make a profit and still do another job on the side. Right? And so I don't know if we factor all those numbers in, but I think people who have been in the long-term real estate game have seen upturns and downturns before in the past, and they will stick with it. And conversations that I'm having, they are happy to see that interest rates have been frozen, they have stabilized, and I'm excited and hopeful to see that interest will come down, because who concerns me the most right now is those homeowners that did everything right. They locked in their mortgages, and now they're up for renewal, and the increase that they're going to face is more than they could have accounted for, and they never factored that in necessarily, right? And so I do really feel for those people, and that's who we're concerned about. And I think in this next budget that Freeland has just announced, you're going to hear more announcements about how we are going to help housing, how we're going to try to bring more competition into the market as well.
Let's talk a few other stuff very importantly. He has been very vocal about the auto theft industry in Canada, the way things are happening. People are losing cars, and they are not getting protected because the crimes are still going up, and the cars are still getting exported because we have an honor system at the ports. And he was talking about that we need to get scanners at the ports, and we don't have those. What is the government doing about that?
So when they were in government, they slashed funding for the CBSA, right? That's really important to know, that we do need to over time rebuild our institutions, make sure they're properly funded. We have put more money in, but we are alive and aware to the situation that we are exposed in a way where I would say for the first time, it's grown to a level where goods coming in were not our only priority. Our main priority has been to protect Canadians from illegal guns that come in through our ports and our borders that could kill Canadians, through drugs that come into our ports and borders that could also kill and harm Canadians. And most of the threats to Canadians were incoming, right? And therefore most resources were always put in a place where we're monitoring, x-raying, and surveillancing things that are coming in. And now, of course, auto theft has grown to the point that we are seeing there's supply chain issues after the pandemic in all parts of the world, especially in African countries, that we are seeing in some documentaries and news reports where our cars are showing up. And due to those supply chain issues, the shortage of cars, the value of a stolen car, of a used vehicle, rose higher than what we've ever experienced. And even here, right? Used car salesmen had never seen that cars were selling so quickly and at such a high rate, where people were paying more for a used car than for a new car because they couldn't get a new car, right? So all of that has played an effect. Our Minister of Public Safety, Minister Dominic LeBlanc, has pledged more funding. Pablo Rodriguez, our Transport Minister, has also committed to putting more scanners for things that are going out of our country and not just coming in.
We had an honor system before that.
No, I wouldn't say it was.
Or the all the exports going out of Canada the ships that were going out of here,
Yes.
the containers, were they getting x-rayed and screened?
Well, never before has there been a complaint about things that are coming out of Canada. It's trade and economics and commerce, and it's our cars that we're manufacturing. Here in Ontario, we have already a challenge of making sure that we have efficiency at our ports so that our companies and our manufacturers can get their goods to their markets quickly. And so there is a system in place,
Right.
but it wasn't a system in place that was built to stop things going out. It was more to expedite that we could get our things out, and so that Canadians and companies could make, the money that they deserve to and be a player on the international trade market, right? But of course, with this rise, now that criminal organizations have turned their focus towards auto theft.
Right.
And not only guns and drugs, this has become the third most profitable industry for them.
Yeah, it is.
That focus and that priority is going to shift. We're going to catch those people at the border. We're going to make sure that we can, choke the export of these illegal cars that are being stolen and put out. That is why we had a big first of its kind auto summit. That is a lot of important things were discussed there. Chiefs of police from around the country, all of their ideas were brought to the table. They have written reports for the federal government
Right.
as to what we can do. There's a huge role. I met with all the auto manufacturers a couple of times over this last 6 months, and most recently in the last month, about what they can also do. They were also invited to the summit. What mayors, what premiers, and what the Port Authority, all of the players that have a role and responsibility in this were brought, and we're all going to do our part, because we need to prevent these crimes from happening. We need police to have the resources so they can enforce and go after people, and that it doesn't even get to the point of the port. But then, of course, as a last resort, we need to also make sure that these things are not going out of our country. So we do understand this, and I think before Pierre Poilievre even gets around to it, the ideas are already being actioned and worked upon.
Okay, that's good.
We are acting. We are
Okay.
acting. You will see a difference.
All right, all right. Another very important aspect with being us in a G7 countries, Prime Minister was just, I think, in Europe not too long ago, and they are talking about the defense spending. We are not at par what we've been told to. Where are we at on that, and what is the Prime Minister take on that?
Well, I think it is a very important issue. A lot of our spending that is also being spent in Ukraine is also to prevent our vulnerabilities that we may have on our Arctic North and the countries that are a threat to us on that side, which is mainly Russia. Due to those threats, we are trying to prevent and take measures so that not even the NATO contribution, but within our alliance with the US, that we are doing our part so that we make sure that we are safe, and as a result the US is as well. We're working with those partners. We have our Speaker of Parliament going and attending different NATO conferences as we speak right now. I believe they just left this weekend and will be attending for the next 4 days. We have our chair of our Defense Committee going, having conversations, making sure that the contributions we are making in lots of different places and the manpower that we're providing is also factored into the equation. I personally, as a member of Parliament, think it's really important that over time, I think defense has taken a back seat in Canada because we felt that we were a country that was secure and but I think that
nobody can invade us.
But I think that sense of security is starting to fade.
Yes.
And I think it's important we are on the world stage. As soon as Prime Minister Trudeau came in, he took an active role in making sure we're at the table with the UN, we're at the table with our NATO partners, whereas in previously the Conservative approach was let's remove ourselves from NATO, let's remove ourselves from these multilateral institutions. We don't need to be involved and we don't need to spend money on any of that. I don't think that's the right approach. I think we do need to be involved. We need to be at the table now more than ever before.
More than ever.
And and you know, one of their front bench MPs just recently put forward a petition wanting us to remove ourselves from the UN. You know, these are the types of sentiments that are leading that party.
Do we get penalized by not coming up that 2% of the GDP in the defense?
Well, so far, we haven't been.
Okay.
So far, we have contributed in lots of other ways as well. But let's see, these are conversations. We have a few of our ministers also in the US having some of these conversations when it comes to defense, and also NAFTA again. You know, NAFTA was a very, I know with the passing of the late Brian Mulroney, that topic has been brought up a lot about how he was the creator and visionary for this agreement of NAFTA. Well, our Prime Minister and our different ministers that were involved were able to save that agreement once again, renew it, amend it, but also save it. And with what we're seeing in the election that's coming up down south, you know, that is again on the table, and stuff we're going to have to really work hard at.
And Donald Trump is coming back strong.
Well, that, you know, we have to be prepared for any outcome, right? And we're preparing for that. Our government is in full swing. We have put a lot of MPs on this, and that is something that I feel very strongly about as the whip as well. We need to be on the international stage. Our MPs need to be leveraging their relationships. Canada is strong at that. We have people from all around the world, and people respect Canada, and so we're going to do that so that we can protect those agreements, but also make sure we're a strong partner and ally for NATO.
So let me ask you to shed a little light on the Minister of Immigration, Canada. I think it was Sean Fraser, and then moved on to another role. He talked about reducing the quota of students, international students that come in, who were bringing a lot of revenue into this country, but because of what we've been hearing, that because of that, the housing crisis occurred, and they have shut it down. You know, have 50% the quota across the board or so. Now, is that going to affect the immigration applications, or this is just particular to do with the student visas, international student visas into Canada?
Look, I don't think we can have, like, these are conversations that I've had a lot of input into. Whether it was with Minister Ahmed Hussein, Sean Fraser, Minister Miller. I think it's not that one minister came in and drastically changed anything. These are things that Sean Fraser was going to take action on. Unfortunately, his portfolio was shifted, but he was ready to make a lot of these same announcements that Minister Miller had taken. But it took Minister Miller also a little bit of time to come back into his portfolio and realize that, you know, these are definitely measures that we need to take. There was never a quota on students. We are now putting a quota in. It's always been a demand-based system. And our demand was always reasonable before. We had a reasonable number of institutions that were acting responsibly. Our provinces seemed to be acting responsibly. But over the last little while, I think everyone got greedy, and institutions got very greedy and saw the money coming in. And maybe some of it was out of necessity and innovation, because provinces were decreasing their funding. They needed to meet requirements and improve technology and other things. So I don't necessarily blame the institutions for doing what they felt they could do. But we saw that demand go from a reasonable number to an unreasonable, what I would argue is an unreasonable number. I think it's unreasonable when, as an institution, you're not providing the quality of education that you would if you could have the proper space for students to take their classes. You know, we were seeing the pop-up of these one-room colleges that are private that I don't think would have met the standard that we would expect from Canadian institutions. So although we're not responsible for education, I felt that our credibility in the education arena was really starting to go down. And now with this cap in place, the provinces are going to have to select the best schools rather than giving licenses to every school that they want to open up, to the point where we had 78 private institutions in Brampton in Brampton alone.
Yeah, I'm
right?
aware of that.
How could you give licenses to so many schools? Like
small 2 or 3 rooms institutions.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So now, unfortunately, you know, our hand was pushed to the point where we had to say, even though this is not necessarily in the past, it has not been our call, we're going to have to put a quota on this and put a cap, because the demand is growing beyond what is reasonable, beyond what even municipalities can accommodate. And I think the municipality has a role to play. I've talked to Patrick Brown and the council about
I'm going to just go on my camera. Viewers, आप देख रहे हैं वॉइस ऑफ टोरंटो टेलीविजन की लाइव ब्रॉडकास्ट। मैं हूं आपका होस्ट अंजुम मलिक। मेरे साथ हैं मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट ब्रैम्पटन नॉर्थ से रूबी सहोता जी। एंड अगर आपको कोई क्वेश्चन हो, अगर आप हमारा शो देख रहे हैं, आपके मैसेजेस तो आते रहते हैं हमारे पास फेसबुक के ऊपर, बट इफ़ यू आर वाचिंग आवर शो and if you have any particular question that you would like to ask the member of parliament, Ruby Sahota ji, you know, you can call us. Our numbers are on the screen as always, which is 905-670-4114. What we're going to do, Ruby ji, we're going to go on a 2 to 3 minute commercial break. That's also very important. We have some messages that we need to play. So we're going to go on this short break, and we'll come back and we will resume our conversation with Member of Parliament Ruby Sahota. Please do not change this channel. We're coming back to you. And if you do have a question, please pick up the phone and give us a call. Thank you so much for watching Voice of Toronto Television. We'll come back to you in just about 2 to 3 minutes time. Thank you so much.
जिंदगी शम्मा की सूरत हो खुदाया मेरी।
मुस्लिम वेलफेयर सेंटर के जरिए आप पाकिस्तान के रेगिस्तान में प्यासों को पानी पिला सकते हैं, गरीब बच्चों की तालीम और माली परवरिश कर सकते हैं, बीमारों का मुफ्त इलाज करवा सकते हैं। ज़कात, सदक़ात या फिदिया देने के लिए आज ही हमें फ़ोन करें 1-866-754-3111।
I want to be a data scientist. That's something I'm passionate about. I want to bring a change in the medical aspect. Data scientists do collection of the data, then they analyze the data, and then they transform the data into meaningful conclusions. Algoma is unique because we get a chance to do one-on-one interaction with professor, and that's the best part.
The need of computer science graduate is huge. Nowadays, the industry demand is changing every day, and Algoma is adaptable. Algoma is changing its course content, changing the degree programs, and giving several certificate courses that the industry is actually looking for.
Personalized learning is the hallmark of Algoma's university experience. Algoma is offering the accelerated second degree. It's the only one in province.
Algoma not only just give us an in-campus experience and skill set, but they also help us develop how to present ourselves in real world. Where do I see myself in 5 to 10 years? I see myself working at some multinational corporation as a data scientist. This is the first step towards my journey.
इसके बाद वापस आ रहे हैं।
जिंदगी ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਦੋਂ ਸਮਝ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਦ ਅਸੀਂ ਟਰੈਵਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਤੇ ਜੇ ਟਰੈਵਲਿੰਗ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸੁਪਨਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਸੁਪਨੇ ਨੂੰ ਸੱਚ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ETN Travels ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਜਰਨੀ ਨੂੰ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਇੱਕਦਮ ਸਮੂਥ, ਡੋਮੈਸਟਿਕ ਐਂਡ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਟਰੈਵਲ, ਆਲ ਇਨਕਲੂਸਿਵ ਪੈਕੇजेस, cruises, super visa insurance, ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਨਾਲ ETN Travels ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਹਰ ਟਰੈਵਲਿੰਗ ਨੀਡ ਲਈ one stop solution, 2 locations to serve you, Brampton and Mississauga.
ETN Travels serving you from 2 locations, Brampton 905-463-1301, Mississauga 905-463-1304. वेलकम बैक व्यूअर्स, आप देख रहे हैं वॉइस ऑफ टोरंटो टेलीविज़न की लाइव ब्रॉडकास्ट, और मैं हूं आपका मेज़बान अंजुम मलिक, और मेरे साथ हैं रूबी सहोता जी, एंड आई एम वेरी थैंकफुल फॉर दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी दैट शी हैव एक्सटेंडेड टू अस टुडे, एंड शी इज़ विद अस टुनाइट. जी रूबी जी.
Yes, so we were talking about immigration. I think the only last thing I wanted to say to answer your question.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you just a few more questions on a broader scale. And the first thing is in regards to crime in this country. What is the federal government is doing to strengthen the system more and have the culprits behind bars for a longer term? So, you know, all this, if you look at every day what's going on in this province, in Ontario especially, 18, 20-year-old people are dying. Young adults, kids are dying. You know, you don't know, it's a gang wars, it's a guns, it's violence, it's overdose, it's drugs. What are we doing as a federal government? I mean, what are you doing? What's the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is doing to strengthen these laws that could save lives in this country?
Yeah. So the drug aspect is many different aspects to that. As to what can be done, which is even better controls at the borders for things coming into our country, right? That is so important. Like if we start focusing on just what's going out again, we've got to do all of those things, right? And it's very extremely important. Our relationship with the U.S. is very important. Much of this comes
across the border,
the U.S. and then into Canada.
Into
right?
Canada, yes.
So there has been a lot of good cooperation, a lot of big busts, and making sure that drugs are caught right at the border. Information shared by U.S. authorities with ours. So there has been more integration, more information sharing between our criminal organizations. One thing that we did just recently in January is pass bail reform to make sure that bail laws are strengthened so that those that are repeat criminals, those that use guns in the commission of their crime, those that use guns in the in domestic violence incidences, because we've had many deaths in our community over that. That those people, those offenders, that the judges and justice of the peace have the power and recognize their power, but it's flatly laid out that there should be a reverse onus for those that are in the legal profession would understand, which makes it tougher for a judge to be able to grant bail. And I would urge, that if judges are seeing that somebody is a threat to society, that they do not release those people out on bail, no matter what pressures they're feeling from the correctional institutions or from others, that they must recognize the danger that they are putting society in at times by releasing those that are repeat offenders. So, putting it into legislation was very important for us. Another very important thing that I know many people in the Muslim community have brought up to me is the fact that there is continued hate crimes that are happening when it involves the community, their places of worship. A lot of hate is being spread online. So we've just introduced a new online harms bill. Recently, we have had suicides of young individuals, teenagers, that were bullied online, that were blackmailed, that were convinced into doing things online, thinking that they were talking to somebody of their age. Meanwhile, it's somebody overseas that, was prying, and they're predators, that are prying on our children. And so this has happened to a lot of families, and a lot of families in the South Asian community have been affected by this too. So we're bringing forth, we've already tabled this legislation. Pierre Poilievre is against this legislation.
He is.
He is absolutely against this legislation, and he's already started his campaign against this. But I think it's so important, right? Like, we had laws in this country when it came to what somebody could say on TV, on radio, the fact that you are not allowed to go and promote genocide or hate or violence against a community. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That is illegal. But then online, we were allowing all of these things to happen.
Yeah.
You know, calls for genocide, calls for violence against communities, and fire is being, you know, yelled every single day as an analogy online all of the time. What are we doing to regulate that? We need to be leaders in the global community. Some countries are starting to realize this and put forward legislation, like Australia. We've done the same. The UK is working on it as well, but we're one of the first, and we need to make sure that all parties and Canadians support us in doing this. We need to make sure our kids are safe online, and they're living their lives more online than anywhere else. More than the violence you see in the streets. We don't even realize the violence and things that they are being subjected to online while they're sitting in what we think is the safety of their home. And then when it's too late is when we realize what is happening to our children. And so many schools are ringing the alarm bells on this as well, because they're having to deal with children going through this. And so that is another way, you know. There's many ways we can take action, and so only so much I can highlight here today.
Yeah, no. Another very important factor I want to ask you to put a light on. Your lot of member of parliaments, Salma Zahid, Shafqat Ali, and they have been very vocal in the House of Commons with the genocide that's going on in Palestine with Israel. In the beginning, when the war started happening, there were a lot of different, you know, from the Prime Minister perspective, you know, he had different, I would say, dialogues that he was talking about. Then a time came when he was pretty persistent that there should have been a ceasefire. What is his take right now, you know, as a government?
Yeah.
And with over 35 to 40,000 people have died in the Gaza war so far, what is the take for the Prime Minister right now, or your government on Israel right now?
I'll start with my position. You know, I have always advocated for the rights of Palestinians. I was the first member of parliament in the history of of not just our government, of parliament, to talk about the Nakba and the rights of Palestinians, the rights that they deserve that have been taken away, which is mobility rights, property rights, the right for freedom of speech, and the right to, you know, human rights and safety, that so many Palestinians have been suffering for the last 75 years. And I addressed that issue on the House floor. I will continue to speak for the human rights of all people, and especially Palestinians. And I think you're absolutely right that, you know, when the news was new and information was being fed from lots of different sources, your reaction is such that of whatever you are absorbing. But over time, understanding the situation, and through our advocacy and caucus meetings as well, because we are hearing from our communities on the ground, we had lots of difficult conversations. We have Jewish colleagues, we have Muslim colleagues, we have a lot of members of parliament that represent both communities, right? And so it was very important for us to make sure that that we address this issue in an appropriate way. There has been a challenge making sure we hit the right note at all times. But where we stand now is on the UN floor, having called for a ceasefire in coordination that we have been actively leading on and working with Australia and New Zealand, and publicly joining together, because I think in initial stages when the Prime Minister said some things, perhaps some of the world was not taking it as seriously as they should. But I think with the power of other countries united with us, it makes for a much more powerful position. And I think, you know, the world is recognizing that things have gone way too far, that this is absolutely disproportionate, and that it must come to an end. And I just talked to our Minister of Foreign Affairs this morning as well to see where things are standing on this issue. She is in Saudi Arabia currently today, and all of her time since this conflict has arisen has been spent trying to make sure that Canada is involved in figuring out how to resolve the situation, and then also in the future The Prime Minister has candidly spoken with us that he wants to take
Okay, I think we have a call.
a leadership role.
Assalamu alaikum.
Understand that.
Hello.
Hi. I have a question for Ms. Ruby.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure that Canada is
Go ahead.
Yeah. The question is that, like, they worked for the Ukraine. Why cannot they work?
I think we have a call.
a leadership role. Understand that.
Hi. Assalamu alaikum. Hi. I have a question for Ms. Ruby.
Yeah, I cannot hear you properly. Can you say it loudly?
Yeah. It's like if they were standing for Ukraine, why they are not standing like Ukraine
Palestine.
for Palestine?
Okay, so your question is if the liberal government was standing with Ukraine during the Russian war, why they're not standing with Israel and with Palestine?
Yeah, my question is that, like, they were.
Yeah, go ahead. Are you there? Hello?
So I'll start with that. We do support Palestine. We have always supported a two-state solution in that region. That's very important. Per capita, we have donated more to relief measures in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip at this point. We are the only country that is also welcoming extended family. I know it's difficult to get people out of there right now. That's a different challenge that we're working with the surrounding neighboring countries to try to accomplish.
Right.
But I would argue that no other country has done as much as Canada is doing, because we know that we have a huge diaspora population of Palestinians that have family members there. And that pain and hurt that is felt when you see your family suffering. I have had in-depth conversations with even the Canadians that escaped Gaza, and upon their return, what they would like to see. When it comes to Ukraine, yes, we are going to support democracies that are invaded without any just cause. And I'm not comparing the two situations, but I'm just saying that there is an alliance that we have made commitments to in that region, and we need to make sure that our NATO partners and ourselves that are vulnerable in one of our coasts, that we protect Canadians, right? So there's
Ruby,
a slight difference.
since the war started with Palestine, have at a time Prime Minister Justin Trudeau picked up the phone after looking at all the destruction, the children and the infants and the women that are dying, and he made a plea to the Israel Prime Minister. You got to stop this. You got to put. You have. He have.
I will clearly tell you, it's a fact that the Prime Minister has several times picked up the phone and talked to Netanyahu about that, and on a daily, almost a daily, is speaking to the President of the United States as to how we can move together in order to, prevent any more damage and the destruction that has been done. Just the numbers that you said obviously are vast, and it's been a constant. There's not a day, I think, that's gone by where this has not been all consuming.
And why have been the opposition leaders so tight-lipped, not making a comment on this in the House of Commons?
They have made comments.
Why he did not condemn. That's what my question was.
They 100% support Israel in everything that they do. I think Pierre Poilievre has made it very clear on the House's Common floor many, many times that their support lies with Israel and Israel alone.
Not with Palestine.
Well, I mean, just go and look up Pierre Poilievre's
words. I've been following him.
I've been sitting in the House of Commons where that position has been made quite clear. They're not looking to try to resolve and to support both.
No, but it's sad. It's sad because if you are the leader of the opposition in the House of Commons and you see 40,000 people have been killed and you cannot stand and you cannot condemn the act of terrorism, this is act of terrorism, genocide by Israel, and if they have not done it, it's sad.
They have condemned it only on one side, not on the other.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. I don't think you can resolve conflicts in that way. Right. we have to work together in order to resolve the conflicts.
Well, first of all, the war has to stop. The genocide have to stop. The bombing have to stop. The relief people have to come in, and they have to start doing things on ground to start rebuilding the lives there. The hospitals are gone. You know, there's nothing there, nothing left there.
So what I was just about to say before we took the call is that we see a role in, and that's why our foreign affairs minister is in Saudi Arabia right now and constantly in contact with Qatar and all of the different allies in the region that we think can be key players, that are key players in bringing this conflict to an end. And the countries in that region are key players, you know. Yes, Canada plays a role, but the countries in that region are even bigger players than we are, right? And I think we have to recognize that. But we've been constantly in contact and on the ground there, making sure that Canada is doing its part to have resolution. And we are hopeful. And I'm hoping I come to your, to the studio again in a few days with a much better announcement and much better news.
I look forward to that.
But I think from Minister Jolie is very optimistic that we will have a resolution soon.
Now, in Pakistan, we just recently had elections. There are as you can see, the whole world has been watching, and the way everything got unfold in Pakistan, the way Imran Khan's party has been side-cornered to the wall, and even though they came back, won big seats. What is Prime Minister's take on this? I know the new Prime Minister has sworn in Nawaz Sharif's family. They are back into power again with the help of, the establishment. That's what they say in Pakistan. What is the take of the Prime Minister on this in general, as a Canada, how they are overlooking to this?
Well, Pakistan is, is a friend, and more than that, in any country, and I would say this for India as well, it's our people-to-people ties that matter the most to us. We also want to see thriving, strong democracies in this world, right? So Canada will always be on the side of an open society, fair elections, accountability, transparency, all of the things that make a strong democracy. So, I think I have to say that it is a role for the people of Pakistan to play to make sure that they hold their governments to account, and that I hope they have that desire to uphold their democratic system and their institutions there. And so we're allies to the people who want to see those institutions survive. And if the people of Pakistan recognize a certain government, that it's difficult for us to take a position on other countries' elections, right? But I'm hoping, what I'm reading in the news and other things, there's a lot of cause for concern. And I'm sure the Prime Minister is very, very concerned, right? And we are all concerned. We think democratic countries around the world are under threat, are under attack. Just like Winston Churchill once said, it may not be, democracy is not the best system, but it's the best system we have, right? And I truly believe that. And I feel even our democracy here is, under constant threat through cyber attacks, through misinformation and disinformation campaigns coming from outside of the country at a constant, very, very heavy rate. And no country is immune from these types of things, right? So we need to work together. All democratic countries need to join forces, make sure we have international organizations that can oversee elections, that can make sure that we're bringing the proper electoral processes in place. And so I wish that upon all countries in the world.
One last question before I let you go tonight, with the promise to come back soon on the show again. Visa processing in Islamabad. Last we discussed, if you remember, when you were here, there was a talks that the embassy would be shifted back from the United Arab Emirates back to Islamabad. The timeline would be changed. The processing time would be changed. What is the update on that?
I wish I came prepared with the update as to how many officials we have in the Islamabad embassy right now. Wish she had given me a heads up on that. I could have brought the exact numbers, so I don't know the exact numbers on it. But I can say, in terms of immigration, one of the questions that you had asked earlier that I left unsaid, probably because I went on a tangent about students, is that we're going to continue to have a thriving immigration process in Canada. Canada is not turning away and becoming anti-immigration in any by any sense of the word. I know there's accusations of that online right now. Is Canada anti-immigrant? Well, no, we're not. If anything, our numbers have grown over the years of how many PRs we are going to take and how many skilled and qualified people we want to bring into our country, along with the humanitarian refugees we bring in from Afghanistan, from Palestine, from many regions in the world, right? So 500,000 is the number that we are reaching, and that number is going to stay for the next several years. Those are not new people necessarily that we're always bringing. Some are new in different categories, like refugees and others, spousal, all of that oftentimes is new people coming into the country. But we're also absorbing people here that already are trained in healthcare and all of these other things, and that includes a lot of Pakistani trained individuals, right? I know, I can speak for my riding alone, the Pakistani community in my riding has grown in the last 5-6 years.
Huge.
Like double. And so the numbers, the sheer volume.
They thought coming to Brampton would be cheaper to live here. It's not.
Newcomers too, though. They're not just moving from one region to another, although there is that as well, but many newcomers inviting their family, new people coming through the Canadian experience class, the point system. So, we need to make sure that those cases are being dealt with expeditiously, and I hear you, and I'll bring you the numbers as to the amount of people increased.
Before, just one more question came to my mind. There was a by-election in Toronto, in the Durham region, and a Liberal lost a seat there.
No, we didn't lose a seat.
Okay, you didn't lose the seat. I heard that it was Jameel Javani who...
Yes, Jameel Javani, the Conservative, but the reason I say we didn't lose a seat is because this seat used to be Erin O'Toole's seat. And for more than 20 years, this has been a Conservative seat.
Oh, it has been a Conservative seat.
Yes, it's never, from my recollection, I don't remember a time where it was not Conservative. However, we still run candidates in every riding, right? We are a party, the Liberal Party, that is a strong party in Canada, and we will run candidates in all 338 ridings in the country, regardless of where we think it's most likely to win or not. So I think Robert Rock was our candidate, and he ran a good, fair election. He's a local councillor from that region, knew the community very well. But you're right, the Conservatives held on to their seat. They maintain ownership over that seat for now.
Okay, Ramadan is starting. On your camera, since Ramadan starts Monday, I want you to, kind of give out your greetings to our viewers who are watching you tonight, Voice of Toronto television viewers, and we will also take one of your messages and we will run it to our viewers as well.
Absolutely. So to all of my brothers and sisters, Ramadan ki bahut mubarakah hon. I hope this Ramadan brings you and your family lots of blessings, and that you enjoy time. You take time, I know you will, because I've seen it in past Ramadans before, that you will take this time to reflect on what's important, to give back to the community, and I look forward to celebrating in many iftaris with many of you in your homes and in the greater community. So Ramadan Mubarak to everyone. Enjoy the next month with your family and friends.
Thank you, Ms. Rubiji. Thank you so much. Viewers, this has been one of our very long-awaited discussion with the Member of Parliament, Ruby Sahota. We congratulate her again for this this new position that she have got, and I hope that in the coming days we can come back and we can talk more on the Liberal government functioning, and anything new that's going to be happening, we will try to bring it out to you. Thank you for watching. Your feedback is always very important to us. You can write to us at voiceoftorontotv@gmail.com. You can shoot us an email, and we always like your emails. But if you'd like to send us messages on our Facebook, our social media handle is at Voice of Toronto TV. And I'll come back to you next week. We're starting our Ramadan transmission 2 to 3 days a week from next week, and we will talk to you then. Till then, a very good evening and very good night. Thank you for watching Voice of Toronto Television, and bye-bye for now.